Surf's up. It's the leader of the 9 out of 9 movement. We're here at the Blast Paris Major Challenger Stage, the last Challenger Stage in Major history for CSGO, and we're going to get 9 out of 9. And the reason we do this is because we don't care about 5 out of 9. It's so easy to just pick all these favorites and to put them in the bottom row and to not even really care about what we put in the 3-0. If you're putting a team like OG in your 3-0, look at yourself in the mirror and say, are you proud of yourself? Are you proud of yourself for putting OG there? Does that help you sleep at night that you put OG in the 3-0? Didn't think so. Okay, so this is how you play the true 3-0 9 out of 9 picks. Okay, this is it. You have two options for your 3-0 pick. You have G2, and this is crazy, you have Monty. Yes. How are you putting Monty in the 3-0 spot? Well, if you actually look at the seeding here, they're playing FaZe in the first round. That is difficult, but they are seeded very strongly because of how they finish at the RMR that they played in, and the Buchel system is actually rewarding them for completing that Swiss system in the fashion that they did. They went 3-1, they looked pretty good, they barely didn't actually capture a legend spot, and so for Monty, if they beat FaZe, everyone that they're playing is actually bad. If you actually go through all the simulators, they won't really have too many tough opponents. But I can't get over the fact that they're playing FaZe in the first round, so I can't really actually side with Monty there. So I will be going with G2 as my 3-0 pick. They also have a great seeding, and they also are playing Mongols in the first round, so it's a free 1-0. That's not a jinx. Okay, I will be scoring these in terms of confidence, moving from left to right. The team that I have the most confidence beyond G2 to make it through is ENCE. It's not Liquid, it's not FaZe, it's ENCE. I actually think that the style that Snappy calls, constantly choosing an action early in the round, not relying as much on mid-rounds, but still developing his playbook, showing that they actually have more sides to them than what he was calling in the previous year, especially early 2022, where it felt like it was just straight up strats out of spawn. He has developed a lot with this team. Deha, Modern, they have a wealth of experience now that they're drawing off of in every game. And on top of that, Nerds looks like a bona fide superstar for this team. He's definitely one of the best riflers here in the Challenger stage. And so ENCE are my most confident pick. Second most confident pick will be FaZe. Yes, they have looked like they have been a shell of themselves recently, but they are still the same 5 people that won the Grand Slam. They are still the same 5 people that won the Major a year ago. And so you have to believe that this team will be able to put it together, especially given the circumstances and the pressure of it being the final CSGO Major. Next up, Liquid. And I think that maybe my confidence in them here is where people would question it, but I don't think many people are going to leave Liquid out in that bottom row. Yakindar, Naf, Alige, one of the best trios here in terms of firepower of all of the teams that are competing at this. They actually probably have a better trio than ENCE do, for that matter. Yet, the style sometimes doesn't always seem to serve them very well. The fact that it seems like so many teams have a decent time playing against Nitro as an IGL shows that really they're not doing anything that's going to throw any other team off kilter, that they're going to actually take them out of their comfort zone. And I think that's sometimes what works against Liquid, and it kind of works against FaZe for that matter, that they sometimes just aren't proactive enough and that they just they rely on their individuals to deliver so consistently, and you just can't have a good game every single map. That's just really what Counter-Strike is. Next one is where things get interesting, though. NIP are my 5th most confident team to make it through the Challenger stage. You will be wondering why, and I am here to tell you why. DJL, Alexi B, these two minds have finally found a middle ground that I find acceptable and actually promising. This team is trending upwards. They took down 9 recently, and for a couple of these other teams here, they lose to teams like 9 pretty easily. And so for NIP, what's going on right now is that we were just kind of left wanting so much more out the gates with this roster that it actually undersold how good they could be. We saw the potential, and where it is far off in the distance, just still like feels like we're a light years away from it. But we're actually getting closer. We've hit terminal velocity. We're actually approaching it at light speed at this point. I think those are two completely separate things, but I think that goes to show my lack of scientific depth. So we're going to move away from that analogy. And we're just going to talk about the fact that, honestly, this team right now has Config, who is actually performing much better than he initially did. And I think that the thing with the middle ground between Alexi B and DJL is that Alexi B had this style of being overly micromanaging of all of his pieces. And he's finally realizing, you know what, a second, I can actually trust a few of you guys. Not all of you guys. Like, I think he still wants to micro head trick, micro config a little bit. But I think trusting Brolin and Rez is something that he needed to do. And I'm seeing that those two players are starting to just look a little bit more comfortable in the roles that are happening. And I will also say the communication for this team is obviously better now than it was 2 months ago. So that's why I'm going with NIP there. Again, this is getting pretty difficult, but this is a team that's kind of the opposite of NIP. Maus, they're trending downwards in my eyes, but I think that they are trending from a position that was high enough that even though they're going a little bit down, they still should be able to rely on the foundation that they've set for themselves to make it through this event. And Frozen, for that matter, is one of the best riflers in the world right now. I would say he's top 5 in the year. I'd say Queserato is still my number 1 rifler this year thus far. I would have Nico right behind him. But Axile has fallen off just a little bit. I still think that Axile can be considered in the top 10, but I think that Frozen has actually solidified his position as, say, a sneaky top 7 rifler. He might be better than Axile this year from everything that I've seen from both of these teams. And so where Maus is a little weird is that they probably have the weakest opera of all of these teams that I've listed so far. You look at Monacy, you look at Sunpius, Brokey, OC, even Headtrick, and I think that Torzi has shown that he has less to give than all of these guys, and that's where things get a little bit curious for Maus, and then moving forward, depending on how they finish at this event, or if they even make it through this Challenger stage, but I'm still going to have them making it through this. Next up is also a little bit dicey, and it's going back though to what I was talking about earlier. You had 2 3-0 options, and so I am going with Monty. Boros is also one of the best riflers at this event. I've watched a couple Monty demos now, and I've watched actually 2 Boros POVs in particular to actually see how nasty this guy is, that even though he had such a high attempt rate for opening frags at his RMR, he actually doesn't always just run at his opponents. He's not like just sprinting at them. Sometimes he's playing some passive kind of hinge positions, like, say, connector on Mirage, and he actually juggles those pretty well, and he makes the right decisions to take that first duel, and then he doubles up on it a lot of the time. Like, somehow he'll know where that next duel is coming from, and he'll instantly headshot that person, and this guy's multi-frag potential is seriously nuts. And even though Monty aren't necessarily coming off the page for just what they're providing or what they're doing as a roster, I actually think that they have this late round explosiveness to them that I've really liked. And so I am going to be putting Monty there. And for the last pick, these are the teams that I would be considering or have considered. It was Forza, it was OG, and it was Complexity. I'm going to tell you why I'm writing off a couple of these first. Complexity were bad at Melbourne. I probably would have put Complexity here in these teams to qualify if they didn't play Melbourne. I would have thought that what their experience from what they showed at Katowice, the fact that they get to play so many partner events, the fact that they were boot camping in Europe for so long, made me want to believe in Complexity a lot, along with my own homerism, which I unfortunately can't get rid of all the time. But what I saw at Melbourne was tragic, and they lost to Greyhound. They lost to Vexite clutching against them with an ace clutch. I think it was a 1v3 on Vertigo, and that's just not the Complexity I want to see. That's not the Complexity that I want to see coming into this event at Paris, and so I'm writing them off. I am writing Forza off because I think that the experience from some of the individuals still limits their ability in mid-round ideas and plays, and actually I think that Jerry is probably the best in-game leader of these 3 teams, which makes... there's a case for it. There's a case for Jerry, there's a case for Forza, but I think the other individuals are still a little bit inexperienced. To be relying on a player like Resalt, to me, spells trouble, especially for a high-pressure game, and that is why I'll be going with OG as my last team to qualify, and that is my true belief. Those are my 8 teams that are going to be making it through. I am playing for 100%, but the reason I'm going with OG is because this team is, again, trending upwards. It goes back to that same thing I was saying with NIP. The Nico and Kakafu actually duo has seemingly built out the playbook very well for OG, and what was first showing like kind of like early ends where they were just calling out a spawn and didn't really have any great mid-round ideas, they've evolved drastically and rapidly, and I believe that Dexter also, of these remaining teams, is the best opper. He's probably a better opper than almost everybody here other than Monacy and Brokey. I think he might be the third best opper in this entire stage. And so that's another reason you can just rely on him to punch in a couple of maps here and there. And that's why I'm actually giving OG the nod. So 03, it's a tricky one. It's a tricky one. You have two options. You have two real options here. You have Fluxo or you have Mongols. I will be telling you why I won't be going with Fluxo. Fluxo is bad. They're horrible. They have no mid-rounding ideas. They frequently also just don't know what to do in late rounds to secure man advantages. They are bad, but they have a lot of firepower, and their first round matchup is versus Pain. You're giving me a domestic matchup in the first round where I can easily see a BO1 upset if Pain lets this go to some map like Mirage out of who knows what reason, but just poor preparation. Totally possible. They could actually go to Nuke and Fluxo might win that. There's a lot of reasons why Fluxo can win that map. And Mongols, they're playing G2. Who is my 3-0? Who do I really believe is going to win everything that they're playing? It's G2, and that starts by putting Mongols in the dirt in the first map, and that's why I will be having Mongols right there. And that's it. That's really it. Like, both of these teams to me are of a tier beneath everybody else here, but I also think that the opening matchup is where things can just get weird. People are getting settled in on the first day, and that's why I have Mongols losing this one. I think if somehow these guys meet in a lower stage game, and it's a BO3, you know, that's where you would give it to actually Mongols probably over Fluxo. But Mongols also like playing some of the maps that Fluxo are good at. So that's also scary for them too. But I think you just had two options in this one. I don't think it's safe to go for Greyhound, especially given what they did at Melbourne, where they actually probably could have made it to the grand finals. They should have made it to the grand finals, but they choked on Ancient versus Bad News Eagles. They were up 15-9, called for a rush, lost all the momentum, and there's really no other team you would really want to go to. Like, I was giving you the case for complexity or forcing to make it through. Pain has been solid enough, making it to the playoffs of Pro League, taking down Liquid over there. Gamer Legion, just a team where it's like, you know, they're playing tier 2 EU all the time, and even though they look like one of the weaker teams here, you still wouldn't probably go for them having 0 wins, although like there's a distant chance it's possible for them. Apex, almost definitely not. And now that I'm connecting to the CSGO network, I will be unable to update my picks, but that's basically it, guys. Those are my picks. Yeah, thanks again. Yeah, but play for 9 out of 9, guys. Play for the 9 out of 9. I don't care about if you're just trying to get 5 right. You're playing an old meta, grandpa. Check yourself into a retirement home. And as always, being toxic is a choice.